Well, hello, this is Glenn Crothers from the Louisville Jazz Society, and today I'm excited to talk to saxophonist Mike Tracy, the creator and longtime director of the Jazz Study program at the University of Louisville, now happily retired, I guess.
Indeed.
Mike will be bringing his group, Mike Tracy and CTI Plus, to the next Louisville Jazz Society Signature Series concert on Sunday, November the 30th at 7 p.m. at the Cafe. Hi, Mike. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me today and tell us a little about the upcoming show.
Sure, Glenn. Glad to be here. First off, I find it a little odd, Mike Tracy and CTI. It's really just CTI plus because all of us in the group perform equally and we all take opportunities to bring music to it and act as leaders as we go along. So I don't take credit for all of it. It's a really definitely a joint effort.
Well, that's
And
great
so
to hear.
we're looking forward to being there.
Right.
Playing.
Well, I wanted to begin by asking you about the CTI Plus part of the a part of the sextet you'll be bringing to the cafe on November 30th. CTI, for those unfamiliar with the initials, was a jazz record label. Can you tell me something about the origins, history, and
Sure.
significance of the label?
Love to. CTI stands for Creed Taylor Incorporated, and Creed was a very influential record producer. He worked with many major labels, and the one before CTI was A&M. So CTI, and which was by Herb Alpert, which came off of essentially Tijuana Brass. And so Creed had a great interest in jazz and done it at different labels. And under A&M, he wanted to do more, and it became an offshoot. Essentially, that was it. And at that time, it was like 1967. It lasted about 30 years, although I understand there's a large library of material they still have in the vaults that they can continue to release things. But at that time period, 67, early 70s was a really formative time for me. And I guess the guys in the band, because we're all about the same age, kind of give or take a decade maybe. But we all listened to that music. We grew up. We had all the great players. My first interest in CTI was Wes Montgomery. I love Wes Montgomery. And I remember
Wasn't
growing
that
up,
wasn't that the first release? Was it
it
best?
was.
Yeah,
I think it was Down Here on the Ground or something like A Day in the Life
right.
was the very first one. And I just loved Wes Montgomery's playing. And so it led me to other people I listened to and other labels like Freddie Hubbard, Joe Henderson, who else? Bill Evans played on his label, and different people like that were on the recording part of that effort. And it just was a changing time in the music, and it became I don't want to use fusion, but it did incorporate a lot of different elements of music that was going on that ended after bebop and after Train and his exploratory time ended up being something that was a little more accessible for the average person. And I just love those tunes.
Right, right. I mean, you could pick a number of different labels. I mean, there's a lot of classic jazz labels out there:
Sure.
Blue Note, Verb, Dial, Savoy, any number.
We're
Why,
Pacific Jazz, all that kind of stuff. Yes.
why this label? What about this label in particular is meaningful to you and the
Well,
members of the band?
like I said, it was a time period where we were all growing up listening to jazz. We started doing that. In fact, I think most of us yeah, maybe most of us got our start with Jamie, and he was, on the cutting edge of doing that. I would go home with recordings from his house and be the labels, and be Impulse would have their look, CTI had their look, everybody had a certain look, Blue Note had their look, and it just attracted me that people like Joe Henderson. I just love Joe Henderson's playing and Freddie, and they playing together on things like Red Clay and Super Blue and things of that nature. And I was just attracted to it. It was just great fun listening to it. Although it wasn't, like you said, not the only music going on at the time, but it's just something that just touched a nerve for me. And I've always wanted to play it. We ended up playing, you play a job somewhere, you play a lot of standards, and you may get a jazz tune here or there. And I always wanted to play these tunes where we really did them justice and played them the way, in the spirit and the effort, and where people would enjoy hearing us recreate that music.
Yeah, it's funny. I didn't realize I was listening to CTI jazz label music that was
Mhm.
released by CTI, but in some ways, a lot of this music was the soundtrack of my, my growing up.
Exactly. That's the same for me. I mean, I graduated high school in 69 and the label started 67. I started with Jamie in 70, working on jazz. So it just came at a real important time for me. And I'm trying to catch up on the history of Bird and Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong and Train and all that. And this came along with Cannonball playing, with Riverside and his way of playing more accessible music. And it was just something that just fit me at the time.
Yeah, yeah. Well, given the range of musicians and even the styles of music released by the CTI label in its prime, I guess in the late 60s and 70s, and the musicians, you mentioned some of them, but Wes Montgomery, Freddie Hubbard, Stanley Turrentine, Emer Diodato, Paul Desmond, Nina Simone. I mean, I could go George Benson, Bob James, who was just here in town,
Carlos
Ron
Jobim.
Carter.
Carlos Jobim. Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many great players, and I could go on. How do you choose which musicians and which music to play for the show on Sunday?
That's a great question. Well, the whole idea is, like as I mentioned before, it's not so much my band. I'm the guy making the phone calls and getting everybody together, but all of us have a voice. And so I would ask them, what do you want to play? And the first choice for me was, I want to play Road Song, which is Wes Montgomery's tune. It wasn't by Turrentine or by Joe or people like that. And so each individual, I encouraged them to bring in what they wanted to play so that we could all learn from each other and we could also have an opportunity to share the music we love. And it ended up being that it grew from that. So we're not only playing music that's with CTI, but we were recently asked to play more fusion things, a fusion concert, since we had a setup that could do that. And I never think of fusion music as being a band with horns, a lot of horns, other than Brecker Brothers. And so it stretched us to think of new things to play. So we're going to be incorporating some of that music as well. So it'll be a little broad swath of different types of things.
Well, could you give us a preview of beyond the Wes Montgomery tune you mentioned, of any other tunes that the band's going to be tackling on Sunday, November
Might be
30th?
best to ask me after the rehearsal on Friday. No, seriously, we have a list of tunes. We're going to do Road Song. We'll probably end up doing Super Blue or Red Clay. Uh, there's what other ones? I Nothing comes off the top of my head, but some of the ones that are not necessarily CTI, but we're going to do a Mike Stern,
Uh,
Chromosome. We're going to do oh shoot, Wayne Shorter. We're going to do Havana and do things like that. So we're going to try to spread it out, and definitely there'll be there won't be a repetitive thing in it. There'll be different types of styles all throughout.
so CTI inspired in some ways.
Well, it's just a matter of a transition period, and for lack of a better term for a group, I just thought that would be one that really kind of identified what we were striving to do. We played music by Cannonball, so that's from Riverside, and what else? Fantasy. So those everything's just kind of mixed together, and we just picked CTI because they have the hippest record jacket labels. Uh, it's all the great photography and all that really put it together. Everybody, like I said, had their own look and had their own sound because um, when the sound was put together, Don Sebesky did the arrangements. We
Right.
tried to do arrangements, so they had different arrangers come along, and Rudy Van Gelder recorded the stuff. So it was like the best of the best, and that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Creed Taylor from 2015, and he talked about how as a producer then he wasn't just in the studio, he was also marketing the records. And he said the look of the records was as important in terms of marketing as the music itself.
Well, that's one of the things that I regret that when people, and young people especially, they get MP3s. You don't have to buy any CDs or records. I get my whole house is full of records and CDs. And part of it is the look. Wow, that's great. I go over there and put it off the wall. I know what it looks like. I know what to play. Now you press a button, and there might be some image on a website or on some type of other area that you can see something. But they really took pride in having the label have this certain, aura about it. The sound, the look, the promotion, the players. They were like a family. And so it became an important part of the music. And I think that's an unfortunate thing that's been lost as technology has taken over. Yes, it's more convenient to have everything on your iPhone. And you can call it up in a minute. I'm not complaining, but I missed looking at that Stanley Turrentine label where the young lady's licking his toe or something crazy. It's like, what is that? How'd you come up with this? Or some other thing where there's an giraffe going across the savannah, and that's for Joe Beam's, recording and things of that nature. So it's all part of the music.
Yeah, 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 it really is. Um, so the other thing I wanted to note, and you've mentioned this already, is the Cracker Jack band you put together for the show. Can you tell us a little about the players in CTI Plus?
Sure. Well, joining me on horn, I'll be playing tenor and soprano will be Marlon McKay. playing flugelhorn and trumpet. And Marlon's, just now joined the faculty at school at U of L, doing the jazz history and things of that nature. So we're really lucky to have him. He's a great player. Then, of course, Craig Wagner's on guitar. I can't say enough about Craig.
Yeah.
He's such a fantastic musician in person, and having Craig there is really a treat. Along with Craig is his bandmate from many different bands is Todd Hildreth. Todd will be playing piano and synthesizer, and it's great how Todd can go from one to the other seamlessly. And he's a fun guy, and his sense of humor definitely helps to make the band lighten up at times. And then holding down a fort on bass will be Doug Elmore. And
Mm.
Doug, besides being a wonderful bassist on acoustic and electric, he's just a marvelous educator, and he brings a lot to what we do because he can add things that we don't necessarily see or hear. And Doug is great at doing that. And then finally is Terry O'Mahony on drums, and Terry's a longtime friend and bandmate in many different situations. He plays with me in Ora Certa, my Brazilian group, and Terry's one of these versatile musicians who play the symphony
Yeah.
1 minute. Next time you turn around, we're having a rehearsal doing this and doing a concert over here. So it's a great group of guys to play together. We don't get to do it very often because everybody is busy. And unfortunately, for a band like this, there aren't that many opportunities. Clubs are not going to, come knocking on your door to come in because there's 6 people.
Right.
Well, I don't do it for the financial reward. I do it because of the reward of playing music with these guys. And I really, we played earlier this summer at Hill House, and it was the playing the fusion music, the Brecker brother things, and Wayne Shorter and different people, Mike Stern. We did all that kind of stuff, and getting done, we just kind of smile at each other because we may not get a chance to play it again. So that's why we're doing a few of those charts with this concert as well, because it really is a fun group, and there's nothing like it in town. And just fortunate that we get together and play.
Yeah, it really is some of the best players in town. I'm kind of excited. I'm kind of excited to hear, Craig play Wes and hear Marlon play
And,
some Freddie Hubbard.
oh
It'll be
yeah.
it'll be real
Oh,
fun.
it'll be fun playing, and the hour and a half will go by quickly. And part of my issue with you ask about songs, um, I don't want to just play 3 or 4 numbers, which we could. We could all stretch on it and do that. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to play shorter solos so we can play more of the material, and therefore there'll be a greater variety of stuff played at the concert.
Well, I think that's a CTI kind of trademark as well, is I mean, Creed Taylor seemed to want to make the music accessible.
Well, yeah, and sometimes accessible gets a negative term to it, where it's, you're dumbing it down or you're playing commercial. That's not the case at all. What it means is, for me, I think a concert is successful when you look out at the audience and people are tapping their feet and they're smiling.
Mm.
And it could be a Charlie Parker solo, which I would tap my foot and smile, or Louis Armstrong or Duke Ellington. It doesn't matter the style. And what this was a nod, I believe, to music moving ahead. Miles, of course, we even played some things that were associated with Miles. Freedom Jazz Dance was one of the numbers we picked, and we did it a little differently. And so it was a combination of giving a nod to all the things that were changing at that time. If you think about the late '60s and the early '70s, there was so much going on in our country. There was the war in Vietnam. There was racial uprising that was long overdue, trying to solve as many things as we could. They're still not solved, but it was started at that time period. So as I grew up, we all experienced that, all those things that made us who we are today. And the music reflects that, and it reflects uh, the beautiful lines at times, then the anxiety and the angst at other times. And so it's kind of a culmination of all of that, and it proves to be historically significant because of what was going on and how it was going on.
Yeah, I'd also argue though it's kind of timeless.
Oh no, it's timeless, but it represents that moment in time where everybody, because when you look at it, uh, early '60s, late part of the '50s, guys are wearing suits and ties. Toward the end, they're wearing dashikis. They're much
Yeah.
more casual. It's a reflection of everything moving, and it's still moving. And you're right, it's timeless, but it really does. It did kind of signify this is happening now. This is what's going on. This is what's important. So that's kind of when you say accessible, I think it means it's a reflection of the times.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thanks so much for taking the time to talk to me. This sounds like I'm really looking forward to the show. I think it's going to be real fun.
I'm looking
Um,
forward to it too. I want to practice as soon as we're done.
Well, remember, Mike Tracy, well, CTI Plus with Mike Tracy will be playing the next Louisville Jazz Society Signature Series concert on Sunday, November 30th at 7 p.m. at the Cafe. It's going to be a great show. Tickets are moving fast, and we got some of the best local musicians playing some classic tunes from the CTI and beyond catalog. Thanks again for talking to me today, Mike. Mike,
Thanks, Glenn, and hope to see everybody at the concert. We're going to have a great time.
great.